think are we ready with the live as well? Good. Okay. Hi, welcome to September's ProductTank London. Thank you so much for coming here. So, ProductTank is a Mind the Product event. Mind the Product is the world's largest product community by product people and for product people. There are many ways you can get involved with us. So one is by being here, by following our event online. You can speak at the ProductTank, you can host or sponsor ProductTank, and you can write as well from Mind the Product. We have 2 events coming up as well, organized by Mind the Product on the 20th and on the 19th of October. So we have our conference and the workshop as well. So if you want to find out more or buy the tickets, feel free to scan the QR code and you can find information online. Just before I introduce our guests, I'll introduce myself. I'm Serena. I'm a digital product owner at British Airways and one of the ProductTank London organizers. So as you saw earlier, we have 2 guests today from Pendo. We have Todd Olson, CEO and founder of Pendo, and Ben Curry, the CSO as well. Pendo is an organization that is supporting us and is supporting ProductTank as well. So, Todd, if you want to come over and say hi. Thank you.
Thank you, Serena, and it's wonderful to be here. And I really love that mission, by product people, for product people. And for those who don't know me, I'm the CEO and founder of Pendo, and I'm a product person, just like each and every one of you. And I started my career coming up from the engineering ranks and then moving into product, and I found it incredibly rewarding and having the ability to really drive true business outcomes. And it's like that this convergence between technology and problems, I think it's just an exciting role. And congratulate each and every one of you for investing in your careers tonight. I think already you have a leg up on the industry, like when you're spending your Wednesday nights learning, investing, and building community amongst yourselves. This is how you actually get great at your craft. And I really think about product management as a craft. And now more than ever, the world needs us, because there's a lot of technology change, there's a lot of conversations. Obviously all of us probably in our jobs, if you're in a product role today, are being somehow impacted by generative AI. You're walking into the year with a backlog, or maybe a backlog or a roadmap, and you're being asked, hey, what are we doing about this brand new thing that we didn't have, or maybe didn't have on our backlog, which generates crazy trade-off decisions. And we live in a world of trade-off decisions. So I think now more than ever, we need to band together as a community so we can share best practices. We can talk about in a very safe space what's working and what's not working within our businesses, because this is actually how we all learn and how we all get great at what we do. So I'm super proud of being able to host events like this, and this is really important to our mission of building a community, because the world needs more folks like each and every one of you in this room investing in your craft, because we have a lot more digital products than we've ever had before, and digital products are affecting every way we work as a community. So Dan, thanks for being here. Hope you get a lot out of the session. The speakers are amazing, and hope to see you at a future event. Thank you.
Thank you, Todd. So if you have been to one of our events before, we are going to have a Q&A session at the end. You can scan the QR code. You can use the code using Slido. For people online as well, you should be able to see the code on the screen. Today we're going to be talking about leading product managers. So I'm going to be soon introducing our first speaker. But today event is sponsored by Mews, which is the company of Pooja. Sorry, she works there. Yes, she works for Mews, and Pooja is going to be our first speaker. If you want to come over, and over to you. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you. So, good evening, everyone. I am really proud to be here as my company is sponsoring this, and I just want to give you a bit of an overview about Mews, if this works as well. So the sponsors are Mews. What does Mews do? So essentially, here's a snapshot of what we've done. I've been here for about 6 to 8 months. Why do I say 6 to 8 months? It's been about 8 months. It was founded in 2012 by a couple of former hoteliers and tech leaders who actually believed in this mission of making this industry remarkable and providing a remarkable experience to their guests and their customers as well. And actually, one of the founders, has a hotel in Prague called The Emblem, and he went and lived through the pain of the night audit, of the graveyard shift, and he said, I want to change this industry, and this was his dream, and he built that. We have around 3,700 properties, over 800 employees now, I'm proud to say, and 40% of which are in product and tech, which is remarkable, and we're ever increasing that number as well. We had 185 million raised in Series C funding in December, and that's why I made this decision to come along to Mews, because actually it's been taken very seriously out there in the industry. We have some amazing investors that believe in the power of what we're trying to do. Just to give you a quick snapshot, I will get used to this. This is our mission, right? Now, if you think about your experiences as hotel guests, you go into a hotel, you sustain a very long queue in check-in and check-out. But actually today, in today's world, in a world that we live in today, if you're sitting in your hotel bed at night, you can control everything from your phone, whether it's your heating or your water. Some people can even open up their garage doors to let Amazon parcels in. Why don't hotels offer the same experience? So why should I still have to go and put a plastic do not disturb sign on my door? Why do I have to wait 15 to 20 minutes often at check-in and check-out? Why do I have to sit at a reception desk? This is the stuff that we're trying to do for this industry, and I truly believe that we're going to change and make it truly remarkable. So this is our hospitality cloud. I look after operations, and there's many of my colleagues here that do all these other wonderful things. And essentially, it's an end-to-end experience for hotels, their customers, and actually we are B2B to C, because we don't just think about our customers that have the buying decisions to buy our property management system. We think about their customers, who in turn are the guests as well. And of course, front office staff, back office staff, this is truly important to the way that we actually operate and how we make these operations really efficient. So if all of that sounds really, really great, we've got our talent team here in the front. Do you want to just raise your hands? Go and speak to them afterwards, because we are always hiring really great product talent, and you don't need to have hospitality experience. I don't, for example. We just want curious, hungry, passionate product managers to come and join our mission. So that's about Mews. But that's not what I'm here to talk about. I'm here to talk about leading product teams across diverse industries. And who am I? I think I've met some ex-colleagues in the crowd, so you know who I am. But this is me. I'm a senior product director at Mews. I lead the operations tribe there. I have worked in all of these industries and worked my way through the ranks into product management as well. So I started off as a business analyst in NatWest, a project manager at Virgin, a web development manager. I've looked after design teams, creative teams, engineers, you name it. And then when product management finally came about, that's when I went into product management. So I've been in product for quite a long time, really, really loving and breathing that industry. I love what it brings. I love the freshness that we bring to everything that we do. And across the globe as well. And I'm a mum to two wonderful boys, as you can see on the right. They keep me busy. What am I going to talk to you about? So it's these topics here. So leading and motivating teams across many different industries, and some techniques and some thoughts to impart with you. Some strategies in terms of leading and cohesion amongst product managers in diverse settings. And finally, actionable strategies to nurture teams and lead them in many different connotations of industries and global context. So let's start with this. What are the key differences in terms of leading and nurturing teams across different industries? So honestly, to me, leadership and functional experience is key, and that is portable, right? But what isn't portable is obviously the industry experience. And I don't think that you need to seek out for talent that has that industry experience. When I've often gone into many different industries, and there's been product managers there for years and years, they tend to sometimes go into domain entrenchment. And it's really important to actually, as a hiring manager or the talent team, is just understand that actually many people from other industries that are outside of the industry that you work in will bring in those fresh perspectives and that transformation that you need at that time. Do you need industry-specific knowledge? As I said, no. You know, I came into this industry and I didn't have any specific knowledge of hospitality. And in fact, the one before I worked at Huddle, it was sports tech. And I remember the founder interviewing me, and I said to him outright, I don't watch any sports. I'm sorry, I'm not interested in football, basketball, nothing. And he said, no, Pooja, what I need is a leader who is going to come in and transform a team. And that's what I want you to do. Obviously, understand the industry as you get into it, and I'll talk about some of the mistakes that I've made in the past. But just come and transform a team. And I learned a lot about sports for the past 2 years, and then I came into Mews. Do I watch football? No. But you know, that's another topic. And tailoring your approach as a leader according to different industries. So this is where I can bring some of the mistakes of the past, right? I went into certain industries and I didn't really spend enough time talking to customers in the past or talking to my GTM teams, i.e. sales or comm or solutions architects in the past. And that's where I made the biggest mistakes, because you need to understand the market and you need to understand it really quickly. So those are the mistakes that I've made. And also having a passion for the product really helps. For all you aspiring product managers, but also experienced product managers, don't be in a race to just get as many industries on your CV. You have to have a hunger for the product that you work for, right? That is number one. So tailoring your approach as a leader, and we'll come on to that in a little bit as well, is really important. Just understanding those market dynamics so that you can lead your teams towards a mission, towards OKRs, towards strategies. That's really important. And unique challenges for different leaders, right? So what you can bring in is a fresh perspective to change that industry if you don't have industry domain. And each industry is different, okay? The way that the strategies work out, the market dynamics, the OKRs, the metrics that you measure, the external factors that impact that industry, they're all different, but actually the experience that you bring is still the same. And I'll give you some examples of key differences that I've experienced in my life as well. Adapting your processes and strategies to the different team dynamics is really important as well. You will have to go from, and when I say about adapting your leadership style, in one single job, I've had to be transformational, I've had to be strategic, I've had to be authoritative, and I've had to just work through all those different hats. Because at the end of the day, your market dynamics impact how you will behave, right? The growth and the maturity of the company will impact how you behave as a leader. And if you're in a war zone, there's only one style you can employ, sadly. But don't lose your ethics and all of that as well, and I'll come on to that in a bit. This is an example of the e-commerce industry. I see one of my colleagues, we used to work at M&S together, so this will ring a lot of memories. But actually, e-commerce is about data-driven decision-making. You're looking at your funnels, you're looking at your churn, you're looking at your conversion rates on a daily basis. You're also looking at consumer behaviors and trends, especially when you're working with kiosks, or in the case that we did at M&S, with kiosks, with iPads, with big screens in store, with a multi-presence, dynamic offering. You're looking at all the trends that come, and how people use your product is very important. So this data-driven decision-making, qual and quant, super important in this industry. But also, a lot of these industries, e-com industries, reward performance on conversion and all of those things, right? There are lots of things that you need to do that's to do with data, and that's your bread and butter. But actually giving you this example, the hospitality industry is a very archaic industry, right? Our hoteliers are used to very, very manual processes. You can see from that meme there, like they'll fill out 1 million forms before you can even check in. And actually, the other day, I was on a call with some customers. They didn't realize that I could hear them whispering in the background. And they said, Mews automates all of this, but we do it manually. How the hell are we going to adapt to that change? Right? So we in Mews have to behave in a different way. We're leading an archaic industry into heights of innovation that they've probably never, ever experienced before. And to do that is very difficult. So we've got to adapt our product management skills, we've got to push the boat out, and also educate our customers in doing things a lot better. The adaptation of product strategy. So user disengagement is a term that I learned at Mews. I've never heard of it before, because in all my other industries, the more you engage people in your product, the better for your product. So in publishing, at the FT, the more you read our articles, you know, the more money and revenue we would make. But at Mews, it's the complete opposite. And it's so refreshing to hear. What user disengagement means is that the less time a customer spends on your platform, the better. So think about that person behind the desk. If she had no screens, that's what we want to do. We want to check you in with no screens and use technology to power all of that. So we've had to adapt our entire product strategy around this, of saving users time, saving them energy, innovation, and all of those things. And finally, compliance. My product manager is here from our team that looks after compliance. Wow, hotel industry, oh my God. Like, I never realized how much of a hot topic compliance was, from legal environments into every region and market, fiscalization of bills to tax environments and things like that. So this industry, you know, is really important and pays a lot of importance, and our customers expect us to do all of that for them. We didn't really have to do a lot of compliance in e-commerce. I remember GDPR and all those privacy laws, etc. But my gosh, this industry is completely different. Like, they expect this from us out of the box. So these are some of the differences, but throughout all of that, your skills are still portable, right? But you need that hunger, that passion, and that curiosity to get to grips with all of these elements of all these industries as quickly as possible. And Laura, I don't know where Laura is. Laura's just joined Mews. But when we were interviewing Laura, I loved what she said. She said, I talk to a customer every week about nothing. Isn't that amazing, right? We all talk to customers on a daily basis. We have an agenda. We want to shove prototypes in their faces. We want to talk about, like, we want to hear what we want to hear from the customer. But what she said to me was so refreshing. She said, I talk to a customer about nothing. And that's where true innovative thinking comes into play. That is true discovery. You know, that's where you can push the boat in terms of where you want to be. Other differences. So I've already talked about compliance and legislation. Different industries have very different shades of this. Market dynamics, remember, external factors impact all of these dynamics. If you think about the pandemic, what used to work before the pandemic maybe doesn't work so much right now. I remember working at the FT, and we worked on a program called FT Live, which was in-person conferencing. And suddenly the pandemic hit, and it was like, oh my God, how are we going to carry on these conferences? So we had to change our entire strategy around digital conferences, and that became a thing, and now it's a bigger thing. So we have to adapt our strategies according to internal and external factors. And then scale, or the growth or the maturity of the company, is really important. So in a mature organization, we've all been there, right? Bureaucratic, you have to go through so many hoops. You have to work with entrenched technology that perhaps has been acquired through M&As. You have to work on bigger cross-collaboration transformational programs. A lot of these industries have transformation managers for that reason, right? And in a scale-up, it's different. You don't have to work with any of those things. Your main goal in life is innovation. So as a product manager, that's what you're thinking about. But throughout all of this, you have to have that entrepreneurial mindset, I believe. No matter what industry you're in, no matter what scale you're at, if you can continue as product managers to have that scrappy startup type mindset, which my colleague Christian is going to speak about, so I won't take your glory there. But just keep doing that, right? And keep pushing the boat in making products even better for customers, taking them to the level that they don't even expect to be at. Push that boat. And lastly, last but not least, some strategies for, let's just go back so I can show you what I'm talking about cohesion and productivity in diverse settings. So each one of my PMs is in different countries. What do I need to do? I need to be an inclusive leader. And I need to make sure that I create that culture of respect and adapt myself according to the needs of those product managers. Think about language, right? America versus the UK. We speak a different language. Well, it's the same with the rest of the world. So some of the jokes that I might say might not resonate with some of my team members, so I've had to adapt in that way as well. But encouraging diversity of thought actually has a direct impact on your products as well. So for those of you that are old enough to remember the smartphones back in the day, they would not fit into a female's hands. They were too big because they were built by men, right? So think about how that diverse thinking actually has a direct impact on the way that you think about products. So when you go home, close your eyes, think about who you're marketing your product to, and figure out if you're actually portraying that diversity in your thought to bring that product out to that customer. And lastly, just learn, support, and adapt. If one style doesn't work, you've got to continuously do that and continuously be the leader that kind of brings the team together. Practice servant leadership, practice those listening skills, and adapt to the cultural needs of every one of your product managers as well. Lastly, strategies for nurturing a team of product managers. I've talked about this a lot throughout, but work towards your mission and goals by serving your team, right? I truly believe in servant leadership. I know it's a term that's thrown out there all the time, but I practice and hopefully live and breathe it on a daily basis with my team. And I will prioritize all of their needs above mine and above everyone else in the business. That's number one. That coaching guidance and mentorship, like hold up the mirror to them, because more often than not, product managers, you have the answers, right? You have the answers, you know what's going on. Sometimes you just need a mirror to be held up to you. And talent development. As I said, there's no point in getting all this talent in if you're not going to nurture them and grow them. But actually, don't worry about industry-specific talent within a particular industry. And the way that I believe is if I develop my talent and they go somewhere else and they're really successful, I'm not bothered by it. That's my success. And I truly believe that if I make my team successful as a leader, my success will show anyway. So I don't need to go and gloat about that. And what I want to leave you with is thinking about inclusive leadership, thinking about your values. Caroline's going to talk a little bit more in a second about inclusive leadership. I haven't got time for this exercise, but I did this at Women in Tech and they really, really loved it in a leadership masterclass. Take this away with you. In 5 minutes, write down 10 values on a Post-it note. And then take 30 seconds to remove 3. Take another 30 seconds to remove 2. And do it one more time. You will be left with 3 values. And this is what I came up with. I will always lead with integrity. I will always thrive on the front lines and make sure that my team understand that every challenge is an opportunity that they should embrace and lead in ways that make my impact everlasting. And through that, you can start building a little mission statement for yourself and get inspiration from the internet as well. This is a whole other talk, but this is my mission statement, and live and breathe everything that you do as leaders, but also as product managers with all of these kind of values in mind always, because this is how you bring value to your team and never lose sight of that. I think that's it. We always like a good read, don't we, in product management? We love a good read. And these are some really inspirational reads that I've read. Trillion Dollar Coach is fantastic for mentoring and coaching your product managers, but also just learning how to do one-to-ones, learning how Bill Campbell did this with the Silicon Valley biggies as well. Turn the Ship Around. Actually, it's about military, but it's got so many lessons in there about leadership and leading product managers as well. So please go out and read some of these books and connect with me on LinkedIn and let me know what you thought as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So again, as a reminder, this is the Slido code and QR code where you can ask your questions or add the values as well that you can come up with. And I'll pass it over now to our next speaker. Caroline, here we go.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. First of all, hit the slide. And the next one. Awesome. First of all, I want everybody here to give themselves a big pat on the back. The reason for that is you have given up your Wednesday night to come to ProductTank here in the east of London, and that requires some dedicated commitment to improving your craft. So everybody, pat on the back. Well done. So what do you need to know about me? Put stuff up there, but essentially, I am a leader. I have studied leadership with Oxford University, and now I coach women in tech to be better, effective leaders. And of course, I am Marley's mum. I was told that if you put a dog in a presentation, engagement goes up by 80%. I may have just made that statistic up, but it sounds good. So, what I want you to know, if you have read Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, you will know that habit 2 is begin with the end in mind. And so I'm going to tell you here what I want you to come away from this presentation knowing. Leadership starts with yourself, and we'll go into that in a bit more detail shortly. Inclusive leaders know how to use their power. We're going to talk about privilege and power as part of becoming an inclusive leader. And thirdly, that it's important to adapt your leadership style to your followers and the context. So, who here is already in a leadership position? Put your hands up, please. Okay, maybe about half the room. I am going to argue that if you are a product manager, you are also a leader. Yeah? And it is never too early to start building your leadership capabilities. And this one's for the women. It is okay to want to be a leader. Some of the best leaders that I know personally and on the world stage are women. So, let's go to the next one. What's the difference between management and leadership? Let's start with a basic intro question, bit of a warm-up. A little bit of audience participation here. Who here knows the difference? Please put your hands up. Okay, we've got a few. Awesome. Keep your hands up if you're happy for me to pick on you. That's what that definition is. So, lady here at the front, what's the difference between management and leadership?
Okay, I will start by leadership. Leadership is when you actually, we are running a team and you manage, you lead by example.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to be humble. And you are influenced and you your team. Management is somebody who needs to make things happen.
Yep. Lovely. So leadership, leading by example, showing humility. Management is making things happen. So, my definition, management is controlling for outcomes. You know what you want, and you're going to work through people to achieve that outcome. Certainty is the key. On the other hand, leadership is about adapting to change. So it's influencing, persuading people, all in the context of uncertainty. So certainty versus uncertainty, controlling for outcomes, adapting to change in the environment. Okay. I'm autistic. If you saw that on the slide, I have a reasonable accommodation here. Off we go. So, as part of my working with women in tech, coaching them on how to become better leaders, I've created the relational model. You create something, you get to name it after yourself. So it's Clark's relational model. And it applies in lots of different contexts. So we're going to use it in the leadership context. And very, very common misconception when people step into leadership for the first time is that it's all about other people. It's all about your followers. It is, but that's not where you start. So if you're stepping into leadership, it starts with yourself. All of you there. We're going to cover that in a minute. Your relationship to yourself. Then it's about the relationship that you have with other people. And lastly, it's about the relationship that you have with your context. No, you're doing a great job. Don't have 3 hands. So, starting with yourself. Every day that you are a leader, you will be uncomfortable. It is the name of the game. Because you're dealing with that uncertainty. And that uncertainty throws up your own emotions about that. Fear, confusion, feeling lost, frustrated, confused. You're an imperfect human being. That's okay. You will get things wrong. That's okay. It's all about learning and reflection as you develop as a leader. So one of the key skills to develop in yourself is confidence. And how do you develop confidence? Is through practice. There's a saying, feel the fear and do it anyway. Very famous book. So how do you develop your self-awareness? How do you develop yourself as a leader? Pooja mentioned values, great exercise. As a coach, we could spend a whole session doing values elicitation. And there's values that are operational, that you have today, that guide you. There are values that are idealistic, the things that you aspire towards in the future. There's move towards values that you want to go after, and there's move away from values. So getting a real understanding of what those values are helps you understand, what do you stand for as a leader? How do you make decisions as a leader? Because what's important to you? Next, we have limiting beliefs. So beliefs arise from the thoughts, which are programmed into our brains through our neural pathways. And those beliefs can be helpful. I can stand up here and give a talk to 200 people at ProductTank. They can be unhelpful. Nobody's going to listen to me. I'm going to freeze on stage. I can't do this. What happens is the biases that we have affect the thoughts. So confirmation bias, very, very good one for PMs to be aware of. Confirmation bias would filter out the evidence that is contrary to your belief, whether that's a helpful belief or a harmful belief. And so I can't stand up here on stage and talk to people. I'll be looking for evidence that that's true and forgetting or ignoring the evidence that it's not true. The great news is that you can reprogram your brains. And one of the tools that we use in coaching is positive affirmations. It takes time. It's not going to happen overnight, but that's where working with a coach can help you get there, because they can hear what you're saying and call it out to you and develop that awareness of what's going on in your thought pattern. Next is your principles. Principles are the ways that you make decisions. I have a principle that I value my time more than I value my money. And what that means is that I will never get the time back, but I can always make more money. So I will pay to go faster. And lastly is privilege. I say lastly because we're going to go into this in a bit more detail in a minute. So let's do that. Academic wheel of privilege. I love academics. There's lots of different variations of this available on the internet. Usually there's like 6 or 8 different facets. This one's got 20. Academics gonna academic. And it covers all sorts of things like race, sex, sexuality, but also childhood and development, stability, caring duties, living and culture. And the purpose of this diagram is to show that the closer you are to the centre, the more privilege that you have within our society, because that is what our society values and elevates. And if you're outside of the circle, you have less privilege. And to be an inclusive leader, it's really important that you understand your privilege. So I am a white woman. I am autistic. I am going to university at the moment. I didn't when I was 18. That affords me certain privileges within society. And with privilege comes power. And to give an example, guilty pleasure here, Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. Don't know if anyone's a fan. I am, on the down low. There's a woman as part of that group, Garcelle Bouvet, who is a black African-American actress and talk show host. And in the series that was filmed in 2020, the events of George Floyd's murder was playing out in real time. And so there was a very prescient conversation about race and different experiences. And lived experiences are really, really important to honour and understand. She was talking about her son and how if he was driving, she worried about him. Just driving to the shops or McDonald's, wherever, something very innocent. Because if he got pulled over by the cops, there was a chance that he was going to die. And when I was watching this, in my ignorance, I thought, what? Wow. Like, I have not had that experience of driving along in my car and feeling like at any moment I could be stopped and my life would be in danger. That's privilege. And so it's really important to have these conversations. And as a leader, to understand that that is a real experience for someone. So how do you relate to that? So leadership is emotionally driven. If we go to the next one. And this is where we start to go into the relationship with others. So power is the ability to act or influence another person's behaviour. And French and Raven conducted research in the 50s, which has since been expanded. It was 6 types of power, now it's 9. I'm not going to go through all of them because I haven't got time. Legitimate power, just to take one example, top left, comes from a place of authority. I'm not going to ask who's heard this. I've heard it many times. Job titles don't mean much around here. It's a pet peeve of mine, because what is behind that saying, job titles don't mean much around here? It is privilege. It is always said by people who already hold those titles. It is disrespectful to cultures where status and position are important, be that Hispanic cultures, some Asian cultures. Wipe that from your vocabulary if you've ever said that. So these top 5 powers relate more to management, and the bottom 4 relate more to leadership. So leadership, we have got connection power. I'll start with referent power, actually. So that's the first one. Referent power comes from liking and being respected by other people. Connection power comes from networking with those who have power. Person power, it's not personnel power, person power comes from those individual differences that you have, so that privilege. And presence power is about you as like the individual's ability to make themselves seen or noticed. So we all know if the CEO walks into the room, whoop, they're there, okay, that's presence power. The key skill to develop when we're talking about building a relationship with others as leaders is trust. And how do you build trust? Well, it comes from vulnerability. How do you encourage vulnerability? Is through psychological safety. And psychological safety is about being respectful of the privilege that you have, the privilege that other people have, the lived experiences. It's about having courage to say the thing that other people can't say because they're not in the room or they don't have the power to say it. So, yeah, leadership, emotionally driven, not by reason or logic. Next one. And leadership styles. So again, Pooja touched on this briefly. This is about your relationship to context. So the environment's always changing. How do you react? Fear, uncertainty, confusion, all of that jazz. This is where knowing yourself is really important. How do you react to that? Because other people will be looking to you and taking their cue from your behaviour. This is also where the key skill of decisiveness comes into play. Decisiveness is about understanding the risks, as well as the reversibility and the impact of that decision. So, styles of leadership are actually concerned with how decisions are made and by whom. There's no bad style of leadership. We often hear autocratic, oh, that's really bad because it's telling people what to do. If you're in a war situation, you want to be told what to do because you want to be safe. You don't want to have the democratic, oh, well, what do you think we should do? Should we do this? Let's have a referendum. Oh, let's consult all of these advisors. No. If you're developing a product strategy, on the other hand, autocratic is not going to go down well. So we need to adapt our leadership style to the context, to the decisions that we need to make. And if we go to the next one, we're almost there. If you would like to learn more about inclusive leadership, there's 3 books that I recommend. So Brené Brown, absolute hero of mine, sociologist, has done a lot of work into leadership, into shame, which is a very destructive emotion. So this is a good starting point, but there's lots that you can read from her. Mentioned earlier, Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. That's a really good one for developing yourself, because he talks about going from dependence to independence to interdependence. We all need each other, all need each other. And lastly, how to be an inclusive leader. So as it says, this is around trust, cooperation, and community, that sense of belonging. So, last one. Remember this? Leadership starts with yourself. Successful leaders know how to use their power and adapt your leadership style to your context and your followers. And that's it. The last one is going to be my contact details if you'd like to know more. As I say, I coach women in tech. Please follow me.
Thank you, it was great. So, time for our last speaker, Christian, and then we're going to go through the Q&A. Thank you.
Hi. I go on this side, right? My name is Christian. I'm going to focus on the niche, let's say, or whatever you want to call it, of entrepreneurial side of product teams. And so I'll illustrate what I mean with an example. I don't know how much you read online about growth stories and unlocking, products. One I love is from Airbnb's early days. And they had this issue that they were stagnant. and I can't remember the numbers exactly. I think they were making $200 or $300 a week, and they couldn't actually ramp up their traffic. So what do you do? And so what they did eventually was grab cameras, contact some of their property owners in New York who had put up rooms for rent, and went and took pictures. And they said, look, we're going to come by and make your flats look amazing. Are you okay with that? And they did. They took pictures, they came back, and the week after they ramped up the traffic massively, because what was holding back people basically was the quality of the photos. So imagine you work in your company or whatever you work in. You may be in a startup, you may be in a bigger company. In a bigger company, you arrive at your CEO and you say, hey, I've got this great idea. I'm going to take 3 people. We're going to buy some cameras. We're going to fly to New York and we're going to take pictures. Right? So first, we don't have the budget. Second, you don't have approvals. Third, how do you dare take the job of the finance guys and the sales guys? They will not let you talk to the customers. So there's a lot of hurdles basically when you're in bigger companies. And so basically, how can you get around this? So I want to, that was the slide I was supposed to have. That's me. I worked in big companies and I worked in startups as well. So I had a music tech startup, the bottom MPME, and I was also in bigger companies. In Google, I did product management on Gmail, product management on Google Maps. I was an early joiner at Shazam. We launched the first system without anything. We literally didn't know how to pick up a phone call. There was no smartphone, and we remembered that when we called the bank, it said, you know, press 1 for this, press 2 for this, record your message. And we thought, wait, if we can use that system, pick up a phone call, save a sound, and then we can run the program on it to create the fingerprint, we're good, right? And so literally that's what we did. And right now, for the last 4 years, I've been independent product advisor to companies, and I work with the teams. I work with CPOs, CEOs to figure out how to make their product accelerate and get better. I love tons of stuff. I love product management. I've been doing this for a long time now. So the first question is, you know, I've given you a super clear example, what's entrepreneurial, what's big company stuff. But basically for me, that's roughly what they are. So the big company is a big ship, is extremely strong, is very powerful, goes far, but trying to change its direction is difficult. The startups are like rockets, you know, they go real fast. If you sit for a week and do nothing in a startup, everything's overtaking you. But it's also difficult, you know, it's difficult to keep pace, but it's very dynamic and very agile. So I've got a bunch of words. I won't read them, you can. So this is product leadership, by the way, make others do their job. So there we go. And so basically the conditions you have in entrepreneurial environments are not the same than you have in, the slides, I'll put them online, readable for everyone, by the way, don't worry about pictures. But so basically the issues you have is that in bigger companies, it's very narrow, your job. You say, you know, hey, increase the conversion of the signups by 5%. On a startup, you start with, yeah, we're not sure about who are our customers. These 2 guys bought from us, the other one didn't, what should we do? So it's much fuzzier to figure out where to go, but you can make a lot of changes very easily and in a very short time space, which you can't do in bigger companies. In bigger companies, you can ask your research team. You don't have a research team if you're a startup. You go to the coffee shop and, you know, hey, can you try this app, please, and see if you like it, or show me what button you would click. In bigger companies, you can have teams of research. They can do, you know, unbiased data results and all sorts of stuff that you don't have in entrepreneurial environments. There's advantages to both, but when you want to go faster, it's not so straightforward. And anyway, so moving on to, if you're the product leader in a company and you have a product team, what are the sort of the aspects that are very entrepreneurial in people and that you can spot and where you can pick up on them and encourage them if you need certain areas to go a bit faster, or where you feel that you're more stuck and you need a bit, you know, more out of the box thinking. Those are the kind of things that are interesting to figure out in a bigger company, where you can use entrepreneurial aspects to get stuff done. So one of them, for example, is curiosity and self-drive. If somebody is so motivated in your team and wants to grab more ambitious results or more ambitious challenges, you can give them something really difficult. You know, something, figure out if this new market is for us. You know, how would you even do it? You need to be results-driven and disciplined in startups, because you could do 12,000 things. You can get to the end of the week and have just done busy work. In a startup, it won't get you anywhere. In a big company, it's the big ship from before, it keeps going. But in a small startup, you need to be extremely disciplined about, is this useful today? I have a list of 5 things I'm about to do. Which one will actually make me go forward? Which one will make progress? So if you're in a big company and you think like this, you can avoid a lot of busy work as well, and you can make your team more effective. Resourcefulness and agility. Sorry, I can't even pronounce that. By the way, all of this is copyright free because I used Midjourney. And that's what Midjourney told me for, one-person band with many instruments. So that's what you get. And that's how you feel sometimes. You need to be, in startup environments, you need to be resourceful. You don't have anything to do a user test with? Go down to the coffee shop. I asked the coffee shop once, I said, hey, can I pay people a coffee if they use my app for 5 minutes and so I can see how they use it and see what they click? And I figured the coffee shop's gonna tell me to go home, forget it, I'm not gonna get people to use your dodgy digital thingy on your phone. The guy looked at me and goes, you're going to pay coffee for people's? Where's my blackboard? He literally put it on a blackboard. He says, somebody will pay you coffee if you use their app. And for him, that was the best advertisement ever. And it took me 2 days to ramp up how should I ask him? Maybe I should write down a sentence on how to ask him. It was amazing. And so you find all these shortcuts to do tests. And then we did it with the user designer, and we did it the proper way. So we did the testing, we did it without telling the people what to click or what even the use case is. We let them discover. We tried to be as unbiased as we could in the small setting, but you can get a lot of results very quickly. The experiments and accepting failure, this is a big one. In a big company, you judge on your results. If you fail, you failed. But actually, if you turn it around and you say, well, we have 3 experiments that we're going to do, and this one we think 80% chance of succeeding, this one 50%. The other one is a shot in the dark, we don't know yet. What if it fails? So you need to give, and I'll come to this in a second, but you need to give the team, you need to give yourself and your team the air cover to be able to do these things in a company setting. That's actually not so easy. Because how do you explain at the end of the year, it's like, well, they worked really hard, but plane crash. What's going to do? And it's tied to the bonuses in big companies. So what are you going to do if you tried it? And so if you manage to create the freedom for that, for experimenting, suddenly you're in this area where people have the safe space to experiment and can say, look, we tried this, we don't think it works, but this taught us this other thing where we should go. And you discover things in the process. And resilience and long-term focus. Lots of stuff goes wrong. Sometimes in bigger companies, people start to get demoralized. In startups, people get demoralized, but you need to keep going. You need to learn from things and keep going, or you shut down quickly. But just chugging along is a very typical result that you have in some big companies, and it's just not helpful to anyone. It will not get your product further. It's a lot of opportunity cost. You could shut down a product and do something more interesting. Up to you. Anyway, so in practical terms, apart from nice imagery, in practical terms, this is you. This is your team is in green. The rest of the company is gray, and we'll get to that. How can you help your team? One of the things about entrepreneurial approaches is I talk to the team a lot more. So instead of having a one-on-one check-in every week or a one-on-one check-in every 2 weeks, I check in more often, twice a week. I check in very much about problems. Tell me where you are. What is blocking you? What are the 3 things you're considering at the moment, and which ones are you picking? Why? What do you expect as a result? So I'm very much more in the details at the beginning to help the team in very much choosing the focus, choosing on what to focus on, and avoid the distractions. Oh, we need approval from this other team. I'm like, don't worry, I'll get that for you. So I can get approval very quickly if I'm the head of product. You can't, because if somebody is down in the weeds and is junior product manager, obviously it will take more calls and emails and meetings to get an approval. So I can help with that. So I can take stuff out of the way. So I can help the team with thinking more about what to focus on and getting problems out of their way so that they can move faster. I can help the team thinking about what moves the needle. So what does move the needle? It's up to you to decide. If you're a company that does $1 billion in revenues, then 3% more conversion is awesome. That will move the needle. If you're a very small company, however, and 3% more signups, doesn't really help you. You need something that is a 30% increase. So there, the moving the needle effects will be different if you choose different topics. So you can help the team with having a very, very robust process for reviewing things, judging them, and figuring out what is it that's going to move the needle. And this is a hard question. And it's very easy to not, to sort of say, okay, fine, we'll do this because it sounds like the most smartest thing to do. But if you're honest with yourself, sometimes it isn't, right? Decomposing problems into measurable parts. That's something that I see very often. I fudge myself. I'm like, yeah, it's all right. But it's not. If you want something to work out, you need to be able to measure it. One of the most typical things I hear in big companies is, hey, we should get around to this thing that's been bugging us for years. We should improve the UI. Yeah, you've all heard this. I mean, every company has every 6 months is like, how about this improving the UI thing? It's going to be awesome. So will it make your life so much better? So what I start doing in general, and don't repeat this, but basically I ask people, I said, okay, great, you want to improve the UI, awesome. Will we get more signups? What do you mean? I mean, well, will people sign up more? They go to our website, they see the stuff, it's beautiful now, and so will they sign up more? No? Okay, so will people engage more? Will they click more per day? We don't know, we can't predict this. Okay, so will people, put their credit card down more? No, will they stay longer? Will they buy more stuff? Like, what is the result? And at the end of January, a quite demoralizing meeting for people, they end up, it sounds, okay, I make it sound funny, but the thing is you demoralize people, and for 1 hour, you go through proving to them that improving the UI, I mean, if I'm a bank app product manager, my MAUs look amazing. Every month people come and log in because they have their mortgages with me, they have their money with me, they need to pay the rent, the electricity. Awesome, look, so if I compare myself to a AAA game that is trying to get people to log in, with an ugly app, I can have tons of users every day. Oh, look at me, like amazing usage. So improving the UI doesn't mean you're going to get more results. So if you decompose it and make it measurable, it becomes very, very clear very quickly that maybe that's not something you should be working on. Maybe there's many other things you could actually do that will improve your company's business. Discovery and validation needs to be cheap and scrappy. None of these 6 months we're going to figure out if the product is good or not. In 6 months, I don't even know what we're going to do. So it needs to be much faster. People want to build prototypes. They want to build real code. Most of it can be done with Figma. Most of it can be done with Miro. I can do old school, PowerPoint. Raise your hand who's used PowerPoint before. Don't, because don't, I can tell my age, but don't worry. PowerPoint, clickable PowerPoints, amazing tools. If you know what you're going to measure and what you want to figure out from the dynamics of the transaction you want to measure, you can do a clickable prototype in PowerPoint. It takes you half a day. So you need that. Tactical aspects, squad leadership, user interviews. You can actually achieve a lot in a 1 hour interview if you structure it right. And so if you're forced by entrepreneurial settings to do that, you get really quick at that, which is small tactical things, how to write emails. Teach your team by showing them how to write emails to get answers faster. Really good. Down to the simple tricks of writing at the right time of the day. Figure out when that person opens their inbox, send the email right then and there. You'll be on top of the inbox and you get an answer. If you know that person always opens the email at 9 o'clock after their breakfast, after they come into the office, send them an email right then. Write the email with the ask first. All sorts of these small tactical things. But I find that a lot of teams, I remember how hard it was to learn all of this, and when I discovered them, I was like, wow, game changer. Why did nobody tell this to me before? So you can really help your teams with that. You can really help teams with a lot of the small tactical things. Some don't like that. Some is like, I know best. I will prove to you that I'm good enough. I'm like, okay, fine. You can learn the hard way like me. And lastly, you as the product lead have other people you interact with, so your peers, so other VPs, other CEOs, your board. So to them, you need to be careful with this, because if you do entrepreneurial stuff, the door's not very far, because they say, well, you took a lot of risk last year. Didn't work out. I think you're not the right fit for this organization, so thanks very much. So how can you actually run entrepreneurial things that seem a bit unorthodox in a bigger company? Run some traditional projects with some people on your team who are more inclined to like traditional projects, and run some entrepreneurial projects. So balance your portfolio, I call it. have respectful but warm relationships. If you have warm relationships with people, means you go, I don't know, coffees, sports. It's a very old school thing, but it does help to have personal relationships. Because when you actually then explain plans, people don't think people respect you because they know you a bit privately as well, and they know you're not taking a risk that you don't understand. And when you take some projects that are very risky, they don't think you're completely crazy. And that's really important, actually. Translate the goals and translate what you're saying. Don't say stuff that is extremely technical. Explain to your board. Say, look, this data center will give us this at the end of the year. At the end of the second year, it will give us this. Here's how much it's going to cost. They love it because they say, oh, great, that's the risk, that's the investment, and that's the potential reward. That's awesome for us. That's not what you're going to talk about with your engineering teams. But as a product lead, you need to be able to translate these things, right? Like the famous different audiences, different ways of saying things, but this is key. If you're using AI, socialize AI. Make presentations to the rest of your executive team about what is AI, what are the risks, what are the approaches, what are the open questions, what are the outcomes that could fail, what are the outcomes if it be successful. So really socialize this stuff and don't leave it for the last moment for the yearly strategy presentation for people to come there and say, we don't really know what he's saying. And then lots of people give feedback to the CEO and they say, you know, the head of product, this thing, we didn't quite get it, right? And then that's the beginning of problems. And support your organization's goals. Don't go off on tangents. Explain to people how the AI relates. For example, if we're going to run 2 AI projects out of our 10 projects, how does it relate to the bottom line? How will it contribute to the company's success? Is it purely strategic? Is it actually going to create revenue in the first year? Be extremely clear about this, even to yourself, but be super clear. And I think that's my sort of practical list. You know, there's a lot of smaller things, but this is the high-level list of how do you embed entrepreneurial stuff into bigger companies that might not be very, you know, you don't want to appear as the crazy one. So here's a few tricks on how to appear that you have a respectable, you know, layer of paint, but that you do some experimental stuff underneath. And that's it. Here's my LinkedIn. I've started a product podcast with a friend on the practical approaches that we have for product. And I put questions people ask me all the time about books. I've put a reading list online. So it's simple to actually go access, and I'm expanding it as I go, basically. I hope that made sense, and I hope you can reuse some of this in the day-to-day stuff. And if you have other ways of doing things, I'd love to know as well. So keep the discussion going. And I think next up, beers. No, we're finished. We're not finished.
Thank you, Christian. Now we're gonna jump straight to the Q&As. So I'm told to not move, stay here, talk to each other, do some networking while we set up the chairs, and we're gonna start. You got a few more minutes to add more questions or to vote for the ones that are already there. So yeah, just 1 minute. Yeah.
As well in the room. No, just talk with me.
Perfect. So I think we are ready. Someone was thirsty. Cool. So Caroline, Christian, and Pooja, if you wanna come and sit down, we're gonna go through the Q&As. Before we start with the Q&As, we post a form to get some feedback. It's on our meetup page, and it would be really great if you can give us some feedback so we can improve our future talks. So, how are you guys? Well done. It was really good. So, let me just go with the first question. I think we got So many votes. Thank you. First one is for you, Caroline. What are some of the most common limiting beliefs you coach PMs through?
So I coach women, and the most common one that comes up for I am not good enough, which is horrendous, but it's usually something that has happened in childhood. And I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a counsellor on this, so we don't go into the past. Coaching is very forward-focusing. But it's something, an experience or something that someone has said to them, and they've internalised that as a belief about themselves. I am not good enough. And that requires quite a lot of unpicking, because living in the society that we do, there are actually things out there that reinforce it. So it's not hard evidence, but there's enough messaging about women, how you look, what you do. A lot of women that I coach have conflict between having a career, very successful career, and running a household and raising a family. And those expectations create pressure and guilt. And they often feel like they're not doing a good enough job in any of that. But honestly, if you are running a house, having a successful career, and starting a family, you are doing more than good. So we work quite a lot on unpicking where that has come from and coming up with positive affirmations. I am good enough. And that's really hard for people to accept up front. So we have to qualify that. We qualify that by adding every day I'm learning that I am good enough. And then over time, when that's repeated, it leads to reprogramming the brain around that thought, that belief.
Thank you. Do you guys want to add anything?
I'll say something. I think just showing a bit of vulnerability here, but I currently work in an organization, or I have worked in organizations where I've been the only female leader, and I'm going through all the challenges, the mum guilt, everything. But at the end of the day, I've got that seat at the table. That's what I keep telling myself. And if it's not there, I'm going to make it myself anyway. I know it's a very cliche saying, but when I look around and I look at all of my male colleagues, if I may say that, they're all just barging in there and saying their piece. Well, actually, now I'm putting them in their place as well, which is quite nice. So I think this is really important, what you've just said. Just carry on believing in yourself. You're there for a reason. You've been chosen for a reason. Whether it's leadership or you're a senior product manager or wherever you are, you've been chosen for a reason. So carry on with those positive affirmations. I have to do it on a daily basis myself.
Thank you. Next question. How do you practice servant leadership on a day-to-day level? I think that's for you.
Wow. So it's some of the things that I've said, and hopefully, Andrew, you'll attest to this, right? Because you're in my team. As I said, it's, we are a Slack-based company. I get millions of Slacks every day, but I will drop everything for my team because I have to make them shine. They are my successful counterparts, right? And it's not about me going and presenting in our company-wide team meeting. It's about pushing them. Because as leaders, you've got to understand if they're successful, your success shines naturally anyway. So for me, it's about that respect on a daily basis, understanding their needs and trying to make them a success. Because I'm here. I don't need any more glory. They need the glory because they are the future leaders that we absolutely have to bear in mind. And that's what I do, essentially. It's nothing... it's not a concise methodology or anything like that. It's just something that you should learn. And it's very simple. It may sound really difficult, but it's very simple. And I've always been this way. I think someone mentioned today, showing humility and vulnerability is a key thing as well. That's really key in terms of serving. I'm a human. Just because I've been put in this leadership position doesn't mean that I don't suffer from imposter syndrome or suffer from all the challenges that all of my team have. I've been there, and it's just being about humble, with integrity and showing some vulnerability as well once in a while. So that's how I practice it. And it just comes sometimes naturally to me.
Thank you. Got a question for Christian. How do you deal with various cultural differences?
Sorry, wait.
How do you deal with various cultural differences?
That's a very good question. I mean, the cultural differences are. Is it particularly? I mean, we have cultural differences in the teams. I have cultural differences in audiences the products are built for. So it's very interesting. I mean, I had once we did a survey about security. This was the first time I had a real culture shock. We did a survey about online security, and the result, you know, we managed to get it translated by some of the in-house team. Great, we can do another language without paying a company, and so we had the questionnaire. We sent it to different countries, and so in Germany, for example, yes, 50% of people were very worried about online, you know, and I'm thinking, okay, but if you're so worried, you know, maybe you shouldn't use online then. and then the results came back about Russia, where it said 10% of people were worried about security, and me thinking, haha. We have a bug, because you can't have from 50 to 10%, right? It seemed weird. But I thought, okay, well, you know, we have one Russian engineer in the team, I'll go ask. And he literally said, you know, people expect things to be read online if you put it online. And I thought, come on, man, that's so cliche. You know, that's cliche as it gets. He says, yeah, but that's the only explanation I have. So it was interesting, because we discovered that we changed all our marketing, we changed all the messaging we had, we changed the roadmap a little bit, because we deprioritized some security features for certain areas of the world and pushed them forward for other areas because of that, right? Because of that cultural, for me it was new. I was reading these things and I was like, wow, I couldn't have known this if I had studied it for 5 years somewhere and reading it in a book. So that was the first time I had different cultural results on products. And I think within teams, I think we're really careful about respect. So I try to shut down as soon as somebody reaches out to me with, oh, I have a problem with that person. I'm trying to resolve it as fast as I can, because this will fester into something very toxic. And if it's because of cultural differences, it becomes more difficult. So sometimes it does end up being in the case that you have to sort of reshuffle the teams a bit, because people just don't get along. But I can't really say if there's any pattern to this. I can't say, because there's people from all countries that are super interested, collaborative, constructive, and then there's other people from, it's a one-on-one basis. I think it's more the person than the culture for me, in general. But maybe I'm just a bit blind, I don't see it, I don't know. But that's generally, yeah, the cultural differences. Maybe I just think only about the product, so that's why I think.
Thank you. Thanks. Next question. We have a lot of questions. I don't think we're going to go through all of them, but this is for all of you. How do you lead PMs without micromanaging them? Who wants to give it a start?
I think based on trust, but also you have to bring the context, right? So context is everything. Context, strategy, focus, vision. So long as you bring that, you've got to trust your team and empower them to go towards those goals and missions. So for me, it's about bringing that context and then empowering them. And I am proud to say I don't have to micromanage my PMs. They know what they need to achieve. They know the OKRs on a quarterly basis. They ask the very challenging questions of me as well and challenge the strategy. But for me, it starts with context, providing that context.
How do I lead PMs without managing them? So, micromanage. I think it comes back to that leadership style. Visionary is very strong. People want to know the direction that we're going in, especially when things are uncertain. It gives them a degree of certainty. If they know, oh, we're heading over there, okay, I can get behind that. And leading kind of by example in the behaviours that you expect. So yeah, like being vulnerable, saying, I'm not sure where this is going, and I'm a bit scared about it, or I've got these questions, we need to answer those. People respond to that and relate to that. I think, micromanagement. It's a big part of trust. What I was talking about, when you're working with other people, you have to give trust. You can build that bit by bit, getting to know people, having those conversations one-to-one to understand what are their values, what are their motivators, what are their limiting beliefs. Then you can understand where someone's coming from and how to engage them and inspire them and lead them without having to resort to micromanagement.
So I tried to approach this for a while. I was like, how can I trust people all the time, and how can I detect when not? And then I realized I'm in this absolute pit of emotional despair of, can I trust people? Can I not trust people? How does it work? And then I figured out, for me, the pragmatic way to figure this out was, I'll simply go with goals and what you mentioned earlier, the servant leadership. So basically I tell people, look, we're going to set goals. You're going to work towards them. As soon as you have anything happening, we'll check in weekly anyway, but as soon as anything happens, come see me. You don't know how to resolve something? Ask me. No bad grades for asking me. I'm going to help you. I know how hard these things are. You have something that gets blocked, somebody's blocking you, come see me. Team problems, try to solve them yourself, but if you can't, come see me. So basically, what I'm trying to do is to tell people that if you come see me in 2 months, and you tell me that nothing has changed and nothing's moved forward, then I'm not going to trust you. Then I'm going to be on your back like I'm going to be micromanaging you, basically, if I see after 2 months. Because you should have the maturity to come see me. If you are afraid of this because of past experiences of, bosses who graded you, and if you came to see them too often, they would tell you that you're doing a bad job. All that's, throw it out the window as fast as you can, come see me. If there's problems, I will help solve them. And then we move forward. The important thing is to move forward. And so that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to install that because 2 months later, if nothing has changed and results are not there, it's only going to be painful for everyone, right? For you, for the person, it's just we're there without the results, so we have a problem one way or another. So we can't simply talk it away in 2 months. So it's better to surface things quickly and to resolve them basically. So that's how I try to do it. And then I hate Jira. So I have no problem of not micromanaging. I'm like, is your Jira clear? Yes. If I ask the rest of the team if it's clear, will they tell me that? Yeah, okay, I'll go fix it. I'm like, thank you. And so that you can do without going to check into Jira yourself. A team found out once I had never logged on to Jira because I forgot the password. I was like, whatever. And they found out that I hadn't logged on to Jira, and they were like, oh my God, how did you achieve these results without looking into Jira? I'm like, I didn't, you did. So there we go. Yeah.
I'm going to challenge that a little bit. If you can't trust other people, what does that say about whether you can trust yourself? Remember, leadership starts with yourself, and sometimes not being able to trust people to do something is a reflection of some inner growth area, shall we say, that you need to work on yourself.
Do you want to respond?
He's stunned.
As I said, I don't know if I can trust people or not. So instead of trying to trust people or not trusting them, so my point is, I can trust people after 6 months of them delivering results. Before, I don't know when I start working with people. How do I know? Everybody has amazing LinkedIns nowadays, so I'm like, okay, fine. So my point is, how could I find a method of working with them without the need to trust them? That's my whole point, is I don't need to trust them. I have a method, and the method generally works. And so after 6 months, then I trust them because I know exactly what they're good at, what they're not good at, what they want to develop. All that I know, but I can't know it the first day. Because depending on what people tell me, I can tell lots of things to many people. Doesn't mean it's true, right? So, and also my own self-image is different from what it actually is. When I ask other people how I am, it's always a bit different from what I think. And so how can people tell me the truth about themselves? So I try to take this out of the equation. That's why I'm trying to approach it with a pragmatic way of trying to figure out how can we avoid these situations without me having to trust them. So I can't get over this.
Different perspectives.
Thank you. So we have one last question for all of you. At the early stages of your career, how do you build those values, and how important is it to adapt them over time?
At the early stage of the career, can you just repeat that a second?
At the early stages of your career, how do you build those values, and how important is it to adapt them over time?
values that I had at the start of my career are different than what I have now. In fact, I think right at the very start of my career, I wasn't even aware of what values I had. I was just kind of winging it through life and being very opportunistic and not really, I didn't have any self-awareness. So I've been on a journey with my autistic diagnosis, which came in last year. I won't bore you with that now. But part of that was developing a greater self-awareness. What do I enjoy? What does motivate me? And it was working with a coach and joining in with the disabled community that brought me that self-awareness. And now that I have that, that is what guides me. So I left my corporate career in March and set up on my own because my career was not in line with my values before. I think you're all here. We've all spoken about values. You've got an exercise that you can do. I'd encourage you to do that because this is day one and you can go forwards understanding now how do you want to show up in the world? What's important to you? How can you be a leader? And if you never had like a role model, how can you be the leader that you wish that you had as well? So, yeah, I'll pass to Pooja.
And I think how you're perceived is really, really important. I remember in my early career, I was passed up for promotions because I was told I was too aggressive or too emotional. And it's true, you know, those things happen. I've had to adapt my style in accordance to where I'm at, really. And every stage of your career, you're going to continuously change those values. So do that exercise today. Keep doing it. Keep refining it. My values have changed as well, as Caroline put. So I think it's not a one-time thing. It's an ever-evolving thing. You're growing. You're maturing as a person. And therefore, how you are perceived to be to the rest of the world is changing as well as a result. What about you, Christian?
I'm much more, it's much more pedestrian for me, I think. Because to your point about your graphic of privilege, I think I was looking at it, I probably checked them all. So I check a lot of these boxes, unfortunately, fortunately for me, but basically I think I come from a different point of view. So for me, the evolution was more, I was convinced, I learned product management when user research was in its infancy. It came from, for example, focus groups were all the rage, because that's how BMW, Coca-Cola, or whoever else were trying to figure out how to invest 100 million in a new product. On digital, it was still completely in its infancy, because focus groups, for example, what people tell you and what they click online as a button is completely different than what they tell you when they see a physical product. And so the transition was difficult. So back in the days, I was convinced that, well, we're going to build a beautiful product. It's going to be beautiful from a UI point of view. It's going to be beautiful from an architectural point of view. It's going to scale like hell. And then we're like, how many clicks did we have today? 3. Oh. I transitioned much more from being a person convinced that in technology and in UI and in all of the design that we could do within product engineering and design, with all that, what we could produce was king of the hill thing, kind of, that was the answer. And I think in the meantime, I spent 50% of my time on getting feedback from and aligning with sales, with customer support, with resellers, joint ventures, and it took a while. It took me, a decade, 15 years to sort of become much more attuned to all the rest of the organizations and understand where they come from. So I've read things like compensation structures of sales teams, understand why we're not selling. Sometimes it's not the product, it's not the customer, sometimes the compensation structure. So read these things. Do I need to read it as a product person? I don't. But will I achieve better results if I manage to understand what drives this team? Yeah. And at the end of the day, that was more my progression, I think, was to understand how to get better results with a lot of other stuff. So that's the privilege part, where I didn't have to deal with a lot of other things. I came more from the point of view that people said, be more aggressive. Because I was mostly like, well, but I think we have a good product. Like, we're okay, no? And then I said, no, you need to say this in a meeting. I was like, okay, so I have to say it in a meeting. Be tough. Okay, I have to say tough in a meeting. And then I was amazed. I said something that's tough, and people go, wow, thank you. And then, yeah, exactly to your point, right? So I came from the other side, more from the shy side, and having to be aggressive. And I was blown away. I was like, why? I was at the point where I said aggressive things, and people said, thank you. And I was like, what? I just said something without proof, without anything, and you accept it? Like, go away. You know, I was almost losing respect for people who would just say yes to me without countering, without questioning what I said. So it's very weird. It's a very weird transition. But yeah, privilege on my side.
Thank you so much. I think there was a really great talks, and thank you. I must say, like, one applause. It was really amazing. Perfect. Thank you, Pooja, Caroline, and Christian. Just as a reminder, we got our events next month, so just scan the QR code if you can see it. And thank you so much for coming here tonight. I really enjoyed it, so I hope you did too. And I'm told we still have a few drinks left, so make the most of it. And I'll see you next month. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Frozen.